brand new podcast that we are tentatively calling Movie Buddies.
That's right.
No. Nope. Messed it up already.
What?
We're going to call it Buddy Movies.
Buddy movies.
Buddy Movies, because of the fact that it's two guys recording.
Right.
And, there's this subgenre of film, but the buddy movie.
That's right. That's
so you have,
clever. Yeah.
It can be, whether
Double
or not it's,
meaning.
You have, whether it's two cops or, or planes, trains, automobiles.
Yeah.
It's one of the first examples that, older examples.
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello, that type of stuff way back.
Right.
So I just thought calling it buddy movies would be a fun little play on what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because it really is all, film-based or movie-based or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's
Agreed.
a TV element to it, but
Yes.
it's kind of all merging together now with the way film and things like that are, because a lot of TV shows are becoming a little more cinematic, or at least the bigger ones that everyone's watching, I should say, are.
I think Game of Thrones or Westworld, a lot of these HBO shows are going full cinematic production value, very, very high end stuff you don't even find in some movies. You're seeing some TV shows top layer in some movies. So yeah, it's what some people are calling the golden age of TV right now, because 10, 15 years ago you wouldn't find anything like you're seeing right now. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
There are a couple shows, but nothing on the scale that we're seeing now. Yeah. Because I can think of Battlestar Galactica was a show that was kind of high production value and overarching story. Before that, you had Deep Space Nine, which had an overarching story throughout most of the series, which was a Star Trek. But yeah, really before that, you never saw anything that was this huge, giant scale of a story taking 7 seasons,
Yeah.
recurring villain for the entire 7 seasons or anything like that, or things like that.
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of these shows, they're lasting a long time. Game of Thrones is 8 seasons. It's this final 8th season. But even other shows, The Big Bang Theory just ended this past Thursday. That was 12 seasons.
Wow! So it's finally done.
It's finally done. Starting.
Did you see the series?
2007. Yeah, I actually watched the final season. I started watching it back the early seasons, then I kind of missed a lot of the middle seasons.
Yeah.
And then I kind of tuned in for the final season. And overall, it actually surprisingly held up pretty well. Definitely not on the par with what it was doing in the beginning, but for me, I honestly still found it pretty funny. It's still in its final season. I thought they wrapped things up pretty well with the final episode.
Yeah, I know they were making a lot of comparisons of that show to Friends, because Friends was another one that lasted 10 seasons and highest paying actors of all time type thing. And these guys topped their per episode amount than Friends did, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't even know how much they were making. It was a lot.
Friends is still higher for the simple fact of longevity now, between streaming and DVD. They're all still raking in that money for that stuff.
Yeah.
So, these guys are literally becoming the highest paid actors of all time, simply out of the fact that they're still making money off of this product that they made, 25 years ago.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, to stay on topic with this episode, we're going to be talking about three different things. And we're trying to break this show down into 3 categories, where we'll do a more modern movie, and then we'll do a modern TV aspect to it, and then top it off with a classic film, which I hate that we're using that term classic, because some of the stuff isn't even that old to me. I remember seeing it in the theaters. Yeah, I remember seeing it in theaters, or seeing it pretty close to release. I didn't go see Jurassic Park, which is the classic quote unquote movie that we're going to be talking about this episode. But the second it came out on video, I saw it. So it was.
I remember going. It came out the year I was born, 93. So I kind of call it quote unquote my movie, because it came out the year I was born. But I remember going to one of my uncle's houses. He had it on VHS, and we watched it at night, and the T-Rex breakout scene literally, it scared the heck out of me. I literally thought dinosaurs existed back then because of the movie. Like, I was so small. I was like, oh my goodness, one of these things is gonna get me. I was out of my mind afraid of after seeing Jurassic Park. Yeah, I was probably, I know, four or five when I first saw it. Yeah, I was little.
That's so young for that.
I was very little. I was terrified. But that just speaks to the I think the cinematic quality of it. We're gonna get into that, but yeah, it was. And from then on, I mean, and that's one of the movies that has inspired me as just someone who's so into the film technique and how it works, all the things that go into it, and all the artistry, and yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's a little preview to the end of the show.
Yes. Yes.
So we're gonna start off with a modern movie, and of course we can't help but talk this month about Avengers Endgame. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you're one of the few people in this world who hasn't seen it yet, spoiler warning, we will be talking about the entirety of the plot and everything that's going on in that. Skip ahead to one of the other sections, and hopefully we'll find a way to mark that or put a timestamp in or something.
Yeah.
To let you know what time that is happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically if you've been absent from general media for the past decade, there's been this phenomenon happening called the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where I think it's been 22 films
22 films, yep.
So they started with Iron Man back in 2008.
Yes.
I went and saw that movie at theater. Took a couple friends of ours. My friends didn't realize Iron Man was actually a superhero. Like, that's how unknown Iron Man was. They just thought it looked like a really cool movie. They didn't know that this was a comic book character. I knew because I'd been into comics since, I was a little kid. There was the 90s era of TV shows that had an Iron Man TV show, along with, Spider-Man and X-Men, which were more well-known.
Yeah.
So I was very familiar with the character, with the story. I was blown away by how well the graphics looked, how well it was done.
Yeah.
And then the end credits scene with the introduction of the Avengers Initiative.
Right.
And I was freaking out. My friends didn't quite understand what was happening because, again, they didn't even know this was a superhero. So we spent the entire drive home telling them what's happening and oh my gosh, they're building all these other superheroes are finally going to come together and we're going to get to see them on screen. We're going to get to see them fight some big bad guy. It's going to be awesome. So it's been 22 films now, 11 years.
Yep.
So many movies.
A lot of build up, a lot of movies, a lot of characters.
And the build up is really the thing that makes this film make history. Because you look at this film, you go in, you watch Avengers. Okay, so basically the story is, in the last Avengers movie, they lost a major battle to the bad guy, and he had wiped out half the life in the universe.
Right.
Half of all living creatures were wiped out. So this movie was basically them coming to terms with that loss, but then also out of left field, something happens where they're able to come up with a solution to try and fix it. But of course it had been, and there's a time jump in it, 5 years later.
That was a surprise to a lot of people.
That was a surprise to a lot of people.
My theater literally, they gasped, and they're like, what is happening? What? And it was,
When they killed Thanos within the first 15 minutes, I was like,
what is happening?
What is going on with this film?
Yeah.
I was sitting next to my brother-in-law, and I go, the number 5 pops up on the screen, or the word 5, and I go, how long has it been?
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law was like, what? And then it goes, years, and I was like, oh my god, 5 years
they did that
have passed
very well. They just put a 5 in a little bit of time, then a years, and then later.
So it's just what? So where are all these heroes now? How has the world actually changed? Which, honestly, I don't feel like we get that much of a look into it. We get a little bit here and there. They kind of go with there's allusions to things getting better at some point.
Some people are moving on from it, but and we learned our heroes, the Avengers, they are one of the ones who are still stuck. I mean, reasonably so. They're still stuck in wanting to somehow save people, their comrades, from this tragic event. I mean,
because we've seen these characters go through some pretty epic, grandiose battles. From fighting Hela, who's like the god of death, and defeating her, down to like fighting super AI that's trying to take over the world, to fighting alien invasion that's trying, that's just like blowing everything up. And so you've seen these, and then the other individual tales and stuff like that in between. You've seen some pretty epic stuff that they've dealt with.
Right.
So I think, even though this was an epic battle for them in Infinity War, there was this air that they didn't think they could lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when that movie ended, my brother-in-law, who I went and saw that with him again, he just got depressed. Yeah. He could not believe they had lost.
People were dumbfounded. They just had no idea what to do, and they had to wait a whole year to get a resolution from it.
I walked out of that movie once again stoked, because I've been reading these stories for 30 years, and I was so excited that this was happening. Yeah. That they actually stuck to their guns, finished it out, and let the good guys lose at the end of a movie. So that was amazing. And then with the whole Infinity War, sticking on that topic.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly,
we just lost.
And that's come back to the earlier point I was trying to make. If you hadn't seen all the build-up, or at least some of the build-up to this, you can't watch this movie. Yeah. You cannot go into Endgame. This is literally a filmmaking faux pas. Mm-hmm. They literally put a film out there that you cannot just come in off the street having no knowledge of anything and watch it. You will not be able to follow anything.
You'll be lost.
Characters show up, do something great, and disappear. Yeah. And they don't tell you who they are. They don't tell you anything about them. These guys just show up, do what they're supposed to do, and then they're not on the screen again. And you're supposed to remember that guy was in some random film, like the fifth film or the sixth film, or oh wait, who's that Agent Sitwell guy? Stuff like that. Like characters who really were just a small part of one movie, is now a bigger part, and the way they rehash different scenes throughout it, especially going into the past movies and having an added flair to some of the stuff that happened. It's pretty epic that they were able to make a film that has now become the top grossing film of all time that you can't see without having seen a bunch of other movies.
Agreed. Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, it's a lot to take in, but like you said, if you're well seasoned to this, if you know all the movies, and there are some exceptions. Like if someone asked me, one of my coworkers asked me, do I need to see Captain Marvel before I see this movie? And after I haven't seen Endgame, I'm like, no, you don't technically need to see Captain Marvel, because you guys have seen the movie. No, she gets probably about 10-15 minutes of screen time in this movie. So, it's not a strict requirement to see Captain Marvel. But if you haven't seen any of the Iron Mans, any of the Thor, any Captain Americas, you're going to be lost. But so Captain Marvel, that was one of the surprising things in the movie for me. Like, she was only in the movie about 10 or 15 minutes, which on another level I can understand, because they had, she came in very late. Her movie literally came out like a month before Endgame came out, I think, and it was about these heroes that we've been with for the past 10 years, and she was a very, very new addition. So I mean, she's still in it. She has her part in the film, but
I was really happy with that, because there's all these naysayers online talking about the whatever they call it, SJW, like feminazi, blah blah. They're using those terms to describe what's happening to the Marvel universe, and I'm sitting there being like, they've done so much and so well with all these films. I cannot imagine them ruining the last Avengers movie by having this character who no one knows come out of nowhere and be this hero that we get. Like, I would have been disappointed with that film if she was the one who took down Thanos. Like if she was the one who made the final blow. Not like I had no problem with her being in it. She did great stuff
Yeah.
in that film. Like they played her character well. But I just feel like they would have been a little bit of a letdown to the three main who were basically Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man.
Yeah.
It would have been really disappointing if she had like stolen their light, you know. Like if they really needed to, maybe. But I think those three characters really were strong enough and powerful enough to deal with the Thanos in the movies the way that they dealt with him.
Yeah.
In the comic books, doesn't really compare because Thanos is, you know, the power levels are just different, and it's just a very different type of atmosphere. So,
Yeah.
I kind of alluded to it earlier, like, what comes next, and then does it even matter? Because you can't do this again.
No, I mean, you can, and they will do it again, but it's not going to have the same impact that it had the first time. There's just this thing where you can do something once, but it's going to be the most powerful the first time around. And so, yeah, there will be nothing. There will be nothing again of this level of excitement building up to it the first time, because it'll happen again. I mean, they're moving on with Phase 4 or whatnot, but to have this much energy and this excitement over something that has never been done before on this scale. This is really an unprecedented move by Marvel to do this, spanning this many years, this many films, this many characters, and to have really pretty much all of them be, you know, critically successful and from a critical and an audience perspective. There's a few in there that are, you know, weaker than the other ones, but for the most part, every single one of these movies has been lauded by audiences and critics, which is not a small feat at all.
Not at all.
When you're dealing with this many characters, yeah, and film is a medium. I mean, there's so many things that go into it, but they really pulled out all the stops on this and delivered.
Yeah, like for me, I think I've said after this, my first reaction was, okay, I'm done with the MCU. And now what I meant by that wasn't like, oh, I'm done, I'm not going to care about any of these movies ever again. But what I mean is that I'm not going to be the guy who's like avoiding spoilers and going to the first showing or first weekend at least. Because I was getting ready for this movie. I had to work Thursday and Friday night, so I wasn't able to see it until Saturday night. I was like, hey, let's go see it Saturday night. And my buddy was like, no, let's go Sunday. Sunday will be a better day for me. And I'm kind of like, I'm sorry, I can't wait that long.
Yeah.
So basically I told him that I was going to go without him. Yeah. And then he was like, no, you know what, it's better, let's go Saturday. So we went Saturday, we saw it Saturday. But I'm not going to do that anymore, I don't think, with any of the films. I just can't put that much time and energy into it. It's been 10 years, 11 years of doing that.
And it's a big commitment, you know, to try to go out there opening night.
3 movies a year.
Yeah, to do that, especially since, like, you know, with Endgame, they were sold out. I think at my theater, I saw it at IMAX opening night. They was sold out within the first like couple hours, I think. So if you missed that little that deadline, I mean, you're not going to make it. I mean, at least for the opening showing, you may make it later showing opening night, but yeah, it's a lot to do, a lot to take in, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this movie was majorly hyped up. Did it live up to what you expected to see out of it? Was there anything that you would have liked to see done differently?
Honestly, it didn't quite live up to it. It was close. I mean, and to be fair, there was a ton of hype leading up to this, like more than you could say maybe any other film, at least in recent memory. Yeah, there were. I loved what they did with, bringing the characters all back together, having basically homogene this entire MCU run for the past 11 years, going back through the different films, you know, with the first Avengers, the Thor movies and stuff like that. The thing that I didn't like as much is it didn't have as many good character moments, I thought, as what Infinity War did. Mm-hmm. It was so focused on getting these Infinity Stones in this amount of time, and there just wasn't enough. There wasn't as much time dedicated to the relationships among these characters. As at least it didn't do it as well as Infinity War did. And of course, you know, there was a lot of action. You know, especially, you know, the final act. But the thing that also kind of let me down was the timeline of it. So I'm a person who loves time travel movies, and one thing this movie did differently was it took the I don't want to say normal because it's not. It's the common method is this overlap time theory. You can call it the Back to the Future method, where if you go back in time, you can change the future if you do something in the past. Whereas this movie, it was more of a quote unquote branching method where you can go back in time, but not necessarily change the future with what you do in the past. So it was a very odd thing to grasp at first, and I mean, as with any time travel movie, there's a lot of things that, like, if you dive really deep into them, they don't really make sense, and we'll get into, I guess, some of that later. But yeah, so some things for the time travel I didn't particularly like. There weren't as many strong character moments, like I said, but all that being said, I was still very, very happy with it. I thought it wrapped up the story, these character arcs really well, especially with Tony and Captain America. I thought those two really got a very good send-off for the characters and for audiences. And yeah, there's just, so it didn't quite live up to my expectations, but it was very close. So I'm not, yeah, I still really liked it overall.
Yeah.
But if I honestly had to place Infinity War or Endgame, I would place Infinity War above Endgame. But that's me.
That's usually how it is with the movies where like direct sequels where they have to build on what the last movie did, like where you can't just move on. You know, like you have like Return of the Jedi versus Empire Strikes Back, for example. Empire Strikes Back is hands down considered the better film. Even you think of like Back to the Future, no one's really going to say that, oh yeah, 2 and 3 are way better than 1.
Yeah.
Stuff like that where you just can't really build on it the same way. Which makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
I can just see it.
I thought it was, for a 3-hour runtime, I thought it was really well paced. A lot of people.
I was shocked with how fast it.
Yeah, time moves really fast in this movie. Like, it's a solid 3 hours. I think a little over 3 hours actually. But every scene moves. Like the beginning, a lot of people, some people complain the beginning is a bit slow until they actually go back in time. But it really picks up really quickly in every scene. I mean, it keeps going, and there's not a whole lot of dead time in this movie. So I really like that because I love fast-paced movies. And yeah, they really, for a 3-hour runtime, it, like you said, it didn't feel like that at all to me.
Yeah, the beginning, I guess, could seem kind of slow because they did go like, boom, we rescue Tony, boom, we find where Thanos is, boom, we go and kill him. And then you're kind of like, where do we go from now for the next, But, and I think the reason it felt slow is because we've already dealt with that for the past year.
Yeah.
We're all sitting there being like, oh my God, what's going on? It's been a whole year. Yeah. So, like, seeing, like, 10 minutes of people just sitting around doing nothing and being all depressed and coming to in the world and...
Yeah, and that was something, like, very unexpected, too. Like, I don't think a lot of audiences were prepared for that. Like, and honestly, even when, who was it? Oh, it's when Ant-Man, whenever he goes to wherever it is, like a memorial, and there's slabs of rocks, and you have these inscriptions, engravings of people that died. It was very 9/11-esque, channeling that kind of, it really felt like an actual disaster happened, and to all mankind, not even just one country. And so I actually appreciated that a lot, that it took the time to let these characters, let this impact set in for you as an audience and for the characters. But
yeah, it would have been way too easy to just show up and start having the action going, and then
they needed to set it up a bit.
So it was kind of good with the pacing.
Yeah,
there were a few controversies with this film where, like, the Captain Marvel one we already kind of spoke on.
Yeah.
Then there's 2 others. The one being the first openly gay character, because this movie hailed as like, we're gonna have the first openly gay character of Marvel.
Yes.
And then it was just kind of like, people thought it was like this major letdown in a way.
Yeah.
And like ill-placed type thing. And then the other one would be Hulk, and how they dealt with Hulk in this movie.
That was actually, I had that in my notes and I glossed right over it. Yes. That was another problem I had. Like, there was basically, the Hulk did not exist in this movie. It was a big green Bruce Banner the entire movie, and it was largely played for jokes. So that kind of kind of irked me a bit because I honestly I am one of the very few people who actually enjoyed the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton.
Oh, I love that movie.
And when they moved, to Mark Ruffalo's version, then he started talking more, and now he's in this movie like he wasn't even the Hulk, and so that kind of bothered me a bit.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's like quite a difference between the one in the Edward Norton film and Mark Ruffalo's version.
Yeah.
Because Mark Ruffalo's version, even though the Hulk talks more, he's kind of like dumber and a little more brutish with the way he fights.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's like
he's
this
not
loose cannon.
right.
Whereas the Edward Norton version was, to me, the Hulk we should have seen in this movie.
Yeah.
Because that Hulk was strategically brutal.
He was brutal. He was a force to be reckoned with.
But it was also like there was a brain behind it too, which is why I feel like we should have been able to see that Hulk come out in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like because, like I just remember in the Incredible Hulk, there's this scene where he's fighting against like they come up with him against tanks and stuff like at this college, like the first time you really see him in that movie. Like you'd only seen him once, but when you really see him pop out in daylight, he's knocking around all these soldiers and everything. And then he literally, like, I think takes 2 pieces of metal and makes these shields. And he's blocking the bullets, he's pushing through and everything, and then he just slams the one shield down into one tank, like destroying it. So it's like this thought and brutality, but also strategy.
Yeah.
Behind the Hulk, which kind of went away when Mark Ruffalo took over. It was just this brutal, like, hey, smash, and he just ran around crushing everything.
It was largely, like I said again, largely played for laughs. The Incredible Hulk was a major dramatic movie. It had very few comedic elements in it. There were a few, but for the most part, it was a very dramatic, serious tone film, and I missed that whenever they went to the Mark Ruffalo version. And visually, I liked the Incredible Hulk, Norton's Hulk, better than Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. Mm-hmm. Even like the color of green is different in Mark Ruffalo's version, and of course, his hair. And of course, they did this to suit Ruffalo, not Norton. But I definitely I love Norton's version better than Ruffalo's. But
it just seems like there was this point where because they have Hulk put on the glove and do the snap to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
And man, they did this like throwaway line in there that kind of is, to me, one of the bigger plot holes in the film, where he goes, well, it's all based on gamma and radiation anyway, so it's kind of like I'm made for this, okay?
Yeah.
And if you know anything about the Hulk feeds off of gamma radiation, and the Hulk feeds off of anger. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. Mm-hmm. The more gamma radiation he gets, the stronger he gets. So it's this weird thing. So when he did the snap and he was hurt like Thanos, that kind of was not what should have happened. It's literally like he should have done that snap and become stronger. Mm-hmm. And then he should have become more angry because he didn't get the result he wanted. Because he talks about the fact that, oh, Natasha, I tried to save her. I tried to bring her back, but I couldn't, you know? So, but that when they do the snap, they go into the Soul Stone and something happens, They have some type of encounter.
Yeah.
So even though they just show the snap for him, something more happened that they never showed. And then he comes back and, couldn't save Natasha. And then instantly they're bombed. Like literally 2 seconds later, Thanos blows the crap out of them and buries them under the Avengers base, basically. Yeah. So to me, that should have been a point where you got where Bruce Banner lost control again. Like not that, like I like the merging of the Hulk, the Professor Hulk thing. I like that idea that he kind of came to peace with it.
Yeah.
But there's this huge, major emotional arc happening here where he could have, reasonably so, gained more power from the snap, gotten angry from it, and gone out there and fought a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where you really don't see him anymore. He's kind of like injured and stays behind in the fight. You don't see him really entering the battle the same way.
Yeah.
And then there was it Joe Russo? I forget who it was who played the guy.
Yeah.
I think it was Joe Russo who played
I think it was Joe.
The gay guy.
Yes.
Which was just this huge disappointment to the LGBT community because it wasn't a superhero. It wasn't even a main character. No. You barely see the guy's face.
It was about a 5-second moment.
I literally remember like reading an article afterwards about the first gay character, and I was just like, wait, there was a gay guy in it? And then I go, oh yeah, that thing with the counseling session.
I honestly didn't even. Yeah, it completely went over my head. I was like, oh, okay, yes, I guess that counts. Yes.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it was just one of those. I don't know. It's just weird. I feel like it was one of those moments that was built up to try and draw people in, but then was like, oh yeah, but we're not really doing anything with it.
It was just a throwaway, basically.
Yeah. So I don't know why they. Yeah, it was just a little cringy still.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention what I liked. I loved. So Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite characters, and I loved Infinity War the relationship they started with him and Thor, and in this movie they further developed it in the scene where they're in Asgard, where Thor basically has like a breakdown, and basically Rocket literally slaps sense into him, saying, don't act like you're the only one who has lost friends and family. Like, we've all lost friends and family. So I love how Rocket has become a leader from just a follower, following Quill and everyone, to being a leader, especially to Thor, like the God of Thunder. And there's the raccoon basically leaving him, when Thor is at one of his lowest points. And that kind of leads into that was one of the surprise of this movie too, was quote unquote, Fat Thor, fat drunk Thor.
Well, see, there's many controversy around that whole thing with Fat Thor, because lots of people thought, A, it was fat shaming, and then B, the slap where he like basically just smacks sense into him, because people felt like there was, because the mental health aspect of it, of the fact that you can't just snap someone out of it like that, it doesn't necessarily work. Who is it? There's another character who kind of like breaks down. Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Has his like mental break where, and you see him go through this whole PTSD and dealing with that. And you see little bits of it here and there, but they deal with him gently and they bring him back, throughout the films. And, so they deal with him differently than they dealt with Thor. And then when Thor's going through it, someone just smacks him. And that was the controversy that some people had about it, was the fact that, they didn't treat him the same way they treated what's-his-name. Why is that? And partially, I think it's because of who he is. It's Thor.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that because realistically, it's not like that worked. He smacked him out of it for a second. Mm-hmm. Thor shows up, does this whole Big Lebowski thing, helps them plan this plan, but the second he starts having to work, he breaks down again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Rocket's there with him when he breaks down again.
Right.
And he has to run off, and he goes and sees his mother, and it's a good, I felt, emotionally connecting scene where he got to deal with his mom again.
Get some closure.
Get some more closure there, but it's this thing of, I feel like they did it well because it didn't fix him. The slap knocked him out of it for a second, but it didn't actually fix anything. It didn't actually help him deal with his emotional trauma. It helped him come to his senses enough to deal with in the moment, but not to actually deal with the problem. So I actually felt that was done really well. And if people were like, "Oh, that's just the wrong way to handle it," I don't know if it's. I have this problem with. It's hard with film. I shouldn't say I have a problem, but like people have problems with like, "Oh, that's not the right way to do it." Well, that's the way things happen in life, though.
Yeah. People
don't deal with people the right way all the time, especially with those types of issues.
Yeah, and that's in those situations is too. On a time crunch, no less. I mean, we're not. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this thing of like, people don't necessarily deal gently with him. People do that all the time. And again, it showed that it didn't actually work. He still had the emotional issues. When push came to shove, he actually kind of faltered. But of course, when push came to shove at the very end, and he had to power up and everything and actually fight, he came through.
Right.
But that's because he had gone through the emotional healing with his mom, dealing with his issues, and her bringing back his, bringing him up to being the Thor we all know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it was like, and the fat shaming thing, they were making jokes about it. But I think there's a difference between, because I've been fat my whole life. I've been fat since I was a little kid. There's a difference between someone making fat jokes about me versus someone making fat jokes about a guy who was like super ripped in college,
Yeah.
and then gets fat when he goes to business, and like starts working and
Right.
not moving as much.
Yeah.
There's a slight difference there. Not that I'm all like, oh yeah, you should make fun of fat people, or make fun of anyone, for that matter. But I think there's a difference when it was the God of Thunder, this guy who was like
Yes.
more ripped than anybody else in the crew, more powerful than anyone else in the Avengers. He literally was, except for the Hulk with his unlimited strength, technically.
Yeah.
He was the most powerful Avenger, still is.
Yeah.
And it's just sad that they didn't I don't know, it's just weird that people are so offended by Fat Thor and making jokes, but
it's all about expectations. It was actually interestingly, there was an episode on The Big Bang Theory that came out. I think it came out a week before Endgame came out, and it was the opening scene, and they're all there, talking about getting tickets to see Endgame, and Bernadette says, "I want to see it in 3D because I want to be able to lick those abs," referring to Thor's abs.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So I mean, obviously they didn't know,
Yeah.
and it's just a fun little wow.
Well, no one did know. No one
knew.
knew. Like we've seen previews for this movie. We've seen Thor in his armor walking to the thing like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. You had no idea.
You had no idea he had a big gut.
Yeah. There were a lot of surprises in this movie. Like it helped that they released very little. Even in their trailers, they released very little footage from the actual movie. And if they did, it was from the very beginning of the movie. Not even like the middle parts. So there were a lot of surprises in this, from a character standpoint, and plot wise. But yeah.
So I think we're pretty good. I think we're getting like plot holes. Let's cover that.
Yeah. So I mean, there's the whole Captain America staying in the past. You've probably heard people say, "Oh, so he stays in the past and lets Bucky get tortured all that time while he's living a nice cushy life with her." So there's that that little issue. Then you can say returning all the stones, like they got the ether out of Natalie Portman. So how's he gonna put that back into her?
Like, yeah. The ethical aspect of it, like so he stabs it into her, so that she has it back, and that would be, And then there's also, for me, the one big plot hole was the pin particles.
Oh yes.
So they have these pin particles. Everyone has one jump there, one jump back. That's all they have.
Right.
Which they kind of explain. Well, they have Captain America and Iron Man go back further, so they use their pin particles to make the second jump back, and then they have to get more pin particles. So but they've covered that. They covered. Oh yeah, we can go there. We can get more pin particles and the Tesseract. So they kind of covered. Okay, so we can get back because they picked up more pin particles. But the glaring plot hole to me was Nebula. They take the pin particles from the real Nebula, give it to the fake Nebula, who gives it to Thanos, so that Thanos can return, But Nebula returned, and assuming she would have to use those pin particles to come back, right?
Yeah.
So then how did Thanos return with the pin particles? If, if they had already used them, they didn't have this endless supply. And this is covering, to me, I want to cover a bigger topic on that, which is, because the Russo brothers explained it. What it was is when she gave him to Thanos, Thanos handed him to Ebony Maw. And they do show that in the film. He hands him to Ebony Maw.
Yeah.
And Ebony Maw is this great scientist guy, and he made more pin particles, is basically what it was. He had that ability to basically copy what they had, and that's how they were able to bring everybody back, bring the ship back, Thanos and everything. Okay, so that's kind of explained, but then it showed in the film. And if you don't show it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's technically a plot hole. And it's this new trend of explaining plot holes outside of the film.
Right.
Instead of showing us in the film what's supposed to happen, we do this retcon kind of thing where we explain, oh, this is how that happened.
Yeah.
To me, it started with Harry Potter, with like J.K. Rowling doing all these explanations on Twitter and stuff like that about how things happen and how things work, which have only made more questions and more kind of plot hole things in her stories, making them more difficult to deal with than they were to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your thoughts on?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing that like you said, you were seeing more and more of in these kind of movies, especially these high budget blockbusters. where things don't, audiences seem to, it seems that even audiences are getting smarter about this stuff, and they're diving deeper into these movies, not just taking everything at surface value anymore. And I think some filmmakers kind of, when they're making these movies, they either say, oh no, I mean, no one's gonna think about that, or and people do nowadays. I mean, when they go deep into movies, they want everything to make sense, which is warranted, I think. And when filmmakers gloss over that, then they're left to, explain it after the movie comes out. And I find it frustrating, to be honest. Like, I think they should, put things in the movie that will still make sense with you just having to see the movie and not having to Google, what director talking about this, or how does this make sense? Oh, okay, yes, and going to like 4 different websites to try to make sense of it. Like,
yeah, because I've seen so many videos on YouTube talking about like the 17 plot holes and how they're actually not plot holes, or the 22 twists that weren't actually twists, or stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like, how many videos do they have to make to explain the problems that were in this film that they weren't actually problems?
Yeah.
I mean, some of it is like, I'm sitting there being like, did people watch the same film? Some little things are like, did you watch the same film as me? How do you not understand how that worked? Like
clearly you only watched this movie once. Yeah, I find it a bit frustrating. I'm hoping they can take some lessons from this and kind of move forward in that, and do a better job in the future. But I don't know. That's not a good situation right now.
Yeah.
Some people find it fun, to dive in and search through all this, but I don't find it that fun to be Googling all over the place, all over, many sites, trying to find an answer to something that I feel like I should have just been able to get right set in the movie theater. But
yeah, I mean, I enjoy watching videos about Avengers, about it, and explaining things, or what are the possibilities next, things like that.
Right.
I enjoy watching those, but yeah, I should be able to sit down and watch the film, and the film makes sense, and not have these plot holes. So you're already at 300, no, not 300. You're already at 3 hours. You're already at 180 minutes. How bad would it have been to be 182 minutes, 183 minutes, just to show us that one little scene of Ebony Maw taking it and doing something with it so that you get more pin particles, like...
Yeah.
Even if it was just a cut of, like, he puts it in a computer and he starts typing, and then, boom, you see pin particles or something, in a vat, or, something like that. So it's something very easy.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, like, I like these type of, the thought-provoking, cerebral kind of movies, like, Arrival, Blade Runner, that type of thing. But I don't, so I like when they leave things, up to interpretation in that regard, but not from a plot perspective, sequence of events making sense. That's where I had the real problem with it. But, yeah. Yep.
So is that pretty well covered?
I think so.
So we're about 45 minutes into this, so that'll be the timestamp that we'll talk about later on when we tell people, if you want to jump ahead, get Cobra Kai and those stories on. Which again, those are going to have spoilers in them, but it's a little different than spoiling a big movie that everyone's been watching.
Right.
So yeah, Cobra Kai is a modern TV take on the Karate Kid story.
Right.
So you have Karate Kid, which was about Daniel LaRusso, who back in the 80s moved from New Jersey to La Valley in California, and ends up getting beat up by Johnny Lawrence. And Johnny Lawrence and him end up in this back and forth fight, and at the end of the movie they've both been trained in karate and they fight, and Daniel LaRusso comes out as the victor in the whole thing. And then Cobra Kai picks up, 23 years later, 25? Or was it 32 something years later?
I mean, the movie came out in 84, so if it's going strictly by that, it'd be like 25 years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes up 25 years later, and...
no, that's not right. 35 years later.
35 years later. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a long time.
Yeah, so it's been 35 years. Yeah, that makes sense, because it's my age. So, so Johnny Lawrence, his life is kind of crappy. He's not doing so well. He's a fixed man who gets fired because this lady just is obnoxious and out there and a little crazy. And then he can't get away from Daniel LaRusso and the fact that he's profiting off of his karate success. Which was literally just, he won one karate tournament. you know, and so he wins this one karate tournament, and now he's the Karate Kid, and he advertised for it, and he has this big business of selling cars, luxury vehicles, and you know the kid, Johnny Lawrence can't get away with it, and his life is getting worse and worse and worse. You know, he's losing his job, losing his apartment, losing, you know, not having the money he needs to get stuff done, and yeah, but so that's the plot of that story. What did you think of how much of it did you watch?
So I only watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay. Then we're just going to stick talking about those.
Yeah, but overall, I liked it. It's nice that they used the same actor. I forget the guy who played Johnny, but they used the same actor as him, and they're advancing his character. They show the effect that this loss had on him all those years ago, and where he is now as a result of it. In addition to like the contrast to where Daniel is.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Back to the Future, how like one event like sometimes can shape your entire course of your life. Like if Johnny had won that match, maybe his life ends up maybe even drastically different from where it was now.
Yeah.
I liked it. There were some good. Let me look at my notes here. It kind of. It's still just stretching from the first 2 episodes, but they're still dealing with the issue of bullying. The themes of justice, mercy, that type of thing, and how karate is supposed to be used as self-defense, not for fighting, only for self-defense. And I like that they're still continuing with that idea very much. And I mean, from what I've seen thus far, I like it, and it sounds like other people have enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just they just released their 2nd season a couple of weeks ago, and it's been signed on for a 3rd season. Yeah, so it's actually doing pretty well. I liked the general story. I feel like it really honors the other one, but also in a way of there's certain callbacks that they're doing to the other story. Like you have this role reversal kind of thing going on where you have William Zabka taking on like this Mr. Miyagi role. Like, Johnny Lawrence is now kind of being like this mentor to this kid who's getting bullied. So you have him, even though he's like a loser type person, he's kind of trying to improve this kid and help this kid become basically like the next Daniel LaRusso in a way, but more in a Cobra Kai fashion.
Yeah.
Because he still has this Cobra Kai programming, but he's also kind of showing that it doesn't quite work too, you know what I mean? Because as much as he's like trying to help this kid, he's also like doing it in a rough kind of way that so you're wondering how that's going to turn out, how it's going to shape the narrative of the story. Because in the 2nd season, Daniel LaRusso opens up his own dojo to combat the Cobra Kai dojo that's opened up. Because on the topic of bullying, so you see in this show, and some spoilers ahead, you'll see the kids go from being these bullied kids because a bunch of his friends ends up being this whole Cobra Kai dojo. You see a lot of these kids who are like being outcasts and downtrodden come to the Cobra Kai, and they start learning their karate and everything, and they become good at it, and they become able to defend themselves, and then they become the bullies.
Then they cross the line. Yeah.
They start crossing the line because they're doing the Cobra Kai method.
I love the idea in stories where, you're at this certain place in life and you despise, this person, what they're doing and their ideas, and then you eventually, through a series of events, you become the very thing that you hated in the very beginning, you despised and you thought was wrong, morally wrong, and you become that thing. I love those type of stories.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Christopher Nolan Batman thing where
you
either die
Two-Face.
or you Two-Face. You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
Is what he says. Which is what we're seeing here. So it'll be interesting to see, though, how the kids interact, the Miyagi kids versus the Cobra Kai kids, because it's not that simple. It's not just simple like bully versus non-bully. I mean, even the original story wasn't really that simple. If you go back and watch the movie, Daniel LaRusso's kind of a jerk.
He is several times in the movie, yes.
Sometimes he oversteps the line, and then basically that's his butt kicked, almost justifiably so. Obviously, they go too far. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the one scene that I remember is the scene where Mr. Miyagi finally intervenes.
Yeah.
in the original film.
Right.
They're the guys in the skeleton outfits
Yes,
chasing him
they all
down.
gang up on him, and
he started that fight though because he set up that prank where he put the hose
Yes,
over them and then
yes.
turns it on, so they're all getting sprayed with water. So they're chasing him down because of what he just did to them.
right.
And then they fight him, and they beat they kind of rough him up a little bit, but then they start going too far where they're like, instead of just being like, hey dude, you're a jerk, blah blah blah,
Yeah. And
they
some
start
of them,
like literally beating the crap
yeah,
out of him.
and some of them protest against it, saying you're going too far, you need to back off.
They do have that.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this guy's, and then he keeps going after him. Johnny Lawrence keeps going after him, even though his friends are trying to like pull him back.
Right.
Yeah, so so to me it's interesting to see Karate Kid in a new light too, because it's like, wow, that movie was a lot more nuanced than I remember it being when I watched it as a kid.
Yeah.
Than now. So I think it's going to be an interesting show. It kind of builds off of that How I Met Your Mother joke. Did you ever see that? The How I Met Your Mother?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I did see that. Yes. Where he's Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah.
Neil Patrick Harris. He goes on this whole explanation of the story, and then he says, and then sadly he loses to that kid in the final tournament, and they're all like, wait,
you were going for him?
Yeah, you're bragging on Johnny Lawrence. You cheer for Johnny Lawrence. He's like, yeah, well, I cheer for. They're like, no, the other guy's the hero, and he goes, yeah, like I'm gonna. What was it that? Something kid from Jersey.
Yeah.
They hate Jersey in the show. That's like an ongoing theme with because they're all from New York. So there's this hate for Jersey. Oh yeah, like I'm gonna cheer for the something kid from Jersey. So yeah, I'm cheering for the Karate Kid. The one actually knew karate.
Right.
It's kind of like there is a truth to that.
Yeah, there is some for sure.
Mm-hmm.
See what else?
There's a YouTube video that goes on the same thing where it's like this whole.
The Daniel's the real bully. Yeah.
In the first fight, he really didn't. Daniel kind of does provoke it and pushes the guy around, and then the guy defends himself. I may have ran out of space on the video. Okay, well, I guess the rest of this will only be audio.
Okay.
Frustrating. We'll get this hammered out. We'll start as a podcast, and we'll do as much video as we can.
It's okay. You can all watch me the whole time. So.
Oh yeah, your beautiful face.
You can squeeze in here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it did really well. Anything else?
Yeah, I just had. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I had. How it shows these two characters in two very contrasting places, and how it's building on the themes, justice, mercy, and bullying, and really showing bullying at a very realistic level. I did say that I liked how in the Karate Kid the bullying was a bit more personal, since it was, I think it was Johnny, like he was still, it was his ex-girlfriend Allie, like Daniel got with her, and that really ticked him off. And that was kind of one of the reasons why he started going after him. Mm-hmm. But in this new one, it's more, at least from the first or two episodes, it was more like petty, events that triggered bullying. But sometimes in real life, that's just how it is. Like you see someone down the street who looks weaker than you are, and you're in a group of people. That's kind of how it works. So yeah. But yeah.
Cool. So let's move on to our final film that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to do the recap on that.
Yes. So our classic film for today is Jurassic Park, which came out 26 years ago, like we were mentioning earlier, back in '93. So basically, the basic plot of it is a paleontologist, a botanist, a mathematician. They travel to this island where they discover that scientists have been able to clone dinosaurs using the DNA from amber-encased mosquitoes who fed off the blood of dinosaurs way back in the day. And the head of the project, John Hammond, who's played by Richard Attenborough, he intends to open a theme park that has, all these different species of dinosaurs. He intends to open that to the public. And basically he wants Dr. Alan Grant to sign off, give his endorsement on the park, as well as they have a lawyer there as well to kind of make sure there's a lot of safety regulations, everything goes off without a hitch. And so they go on this tour, and there is a disgruntled employee who basically, just in order to sneak embryos off the island, he cuts the power, the security fences to the park, and that allows dinosaurs to escape. And so the tour is left stranded out there, and they have to find a way to safety. Yeah, to get off the island and to safety, and everything becomes chaos.
Yeah.
Pun. So yes, but yeah, so that's the basic plot of the movie. Yeah. So I guess let's see. Our questions or our kind of topics for this was, so this was a landmark film in computer generated imagery. This is a landmark film, basically that used a combination of practical effects, animatronics developed by Stan Winston, who was a master in the animatronics world, and computer generated imagery using ILM. Basically, they were going to use Go Motion in the film, which was a basic extension of stop motion. Mm-hmm. It was basically stop motion 2.0. But whenever they had Dennis Muren, who was a CGI artist at ILM, whenever he approached Spielberg about creating the dinosaurs digitally, the full-length dinosaurs digitally, Spielberg was so impressed with what he saw that they decided to use ILM instead of this Go Motion technology. Mm-hmm. And so basically in the film, anytime you see like a full-length dinosaur, that's a CGI shot. Any of these close-ups or half dinosaurs, those are animatronics. And they seamlessly blended the practical effects with the CGI. There's especially the hallmark scene is the T-Rex breaking out of, which is really like a metaphor for this technology jumping out and jumping out into the world and being used in future films, because this was a really huge deal for the film industry, and I just love how this was back in the day where practical effects were still like, this was at the peak of a time when practical effects were the in thing. Yeah, they were the in thing. They were what you used, because up to this point CGI was not up to the standard to look believable enough, and so they used practical effects. But in the case of Jurassic Park, they could have easily used the CGI for all the dinosaurs, but there was a level of artistry here where they wanted to use practical effects for the close-up shots, to make it look as real and believable as possible. And that's just not something you find today. If you look at Jurassic World or Jurassic World 2, the Lost, what's it called? The
Lost World.
The Lost, yeah. No, that's 97 one. The second, Fallen Kingdom, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, Jurassic World.
Yeah, Jurassic World, and then Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. When you look at those movies, they used very little practical effects and resorted almost entirely to CGI. And it was just one of those things where filmmaking has now gone from using practical effects as a foundation and CGI as a thing to complement it, to now it's the opposite. They'll use CGI almost entirely, and then they'll sprinkle in some practical effects here and there. Yeah. But that's why you watch Jurassic Park now and the effects still hold up, because
that's the
it's
thing.
unbelievable.
I watched it recently, and I was like shocked because
it's unbelievable.
It still holds up. There's other movies like even Terminator 2 doesn't quite hold up. It's still great, but the effects on there is kind of like, oh, that's a little weird. It doesn't hold up as well as I thought it would. But Jurassic Park looks as good as anything now, even better than some of the movies we're seeing now.
It's incredible, and I just can't imagine like seeing it way back even in '93 when you weren't even used to what you see today. Being back then, it just completely blow everybody out of the water. I just as I mentioned earlier, when I was even as very, very young, it was completely convincing. Like, these looked like real animals, and they moved realistically, and you could believe that they had weight. And it was just truly astounding to see, and it's still astounding.
That's what's missing. The weight aspect is what's missing in a lot of the CGI stuff that you see nowadays, and that's why there's a difference between when you see like Planet of the Apes is done so well. Even the modern ones with the CGI. Because
performance capture.
Because they do the performance capture, whereas a lot of things don't do the performance capture, and it doesn't look the same.
No.
Like even computer animated movies, they have like, you can see computer animated things now where it's skin texture. You can see normal looking people almost that are completely computer animated, but it doesn't look quite right if it's not done performance capture, because there's no weight to it. And it's weird how you can see, like, it's just a little jerky with their motions.
Yeah, it looks off. It just looks off.
Just slightly off.
Yeah, if you look at they need to have weight and they need to move. They need to basically obey the laws of physics, and if they don't in a certain way, then you can tell immediately. Like the common example is you see Legolas running in The Hobbit when he's running up those stones.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a video game. Like it's not believable anymore. It's gone past that realm of believability, and now you're at this place where you can usually tell that's fake. It doesn't look real, and it takes me out of the film, out of the moment when that happens.
Because Legolas has this scene in Lord of the Rings, where in the third one, Return of the King, where he climbs up that giant thing, and that's completely CGI.
Yes.
Well.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And it looked so much more believable than 11 years later, something like that, with The Hobbit, where there's no weight to it. He's jumping on these stones, and it should look fine, but it doesn't. It doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's almost like there's this weird deterioration of CGI. But
it's. I was just watching a video on it the other day. Like, is CGI getting worse? And I don't think CGI is getting worse. I mean, when you look at a movie like Avatar, like CGI has come a long way, and it will only continue to get better. But the technique is what is fading. It's how they use it. It's how they use the technology that has weakened it.
Yeah, because CGI is really good. You don't even notice it.
Right.
I don't think people realize. I've told my wife several times that you don't even know when it's good CGI and how often they use CGI in movies.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of huge sweeping background scenes in movies are actually CGI.
Yeah.
Even if it's like the White House or if you have mountains or whatnot. It's half the time it's CGI in these films.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't expect it to be in. It's just a dramatic film. It's not an action film. It's not something crazy, but it's got CGI.
Yeah. I was even watching like X-Men Days of Future Past the other day, and like the climax scene at the White House, I was like, okay, yeah, this is all real. Then I look up behind the scenes, and there was like a digital extension. It's like they were in front of a blue screen, and you didn't even notice that the background was completely computer generated. Yeah. So I mean, between that and just being able to actually feel tangible weight and how they move, and even like how the lighting hits them is so important. And you can get that much better with a practical effect than you can with computer generated imagery right now. But it's like I said, it's not even just about the visual when it comes to CGI. It has to be physically sound in order for it to be believable. And I just think a lot of movies these days take that for granted, and they kind of whip through it, because these movies are on a tight schedule, and they kind of whip through it, and they say, oh, this looks good, but it looks good visually, but it doesn't, the movements don't line up. And it's really frustrating because these are high budget films, and you expect things to look really good, especially we're in the year 2019 now, and some things just they don't add up. And then you look at a movie like Jurassic Park and say, what? That came out in 93? How does this look better than what this movie does?
So was there anything that needed improvement or any major plot holes in the original Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I mean, from a story standpoint, like a lot of it is, getting the DNA from these mosquitoes. You would say like, oh, I mean, but you would have to have this mosquito feed only on this dinosaur unless the scientists somehow filtered all the DNA from all the other animals to get this DNA. And
they've proven that the half-life of dinosaur DNA doesn't even work that
way now,
which was very disappointing. I remember when that came out, I was so disappointed. I'll never get to see dinosaurs.
No, yeah. So I mean, that getting the DNA from mosquitoes, while it's a good idea, like if you really break it down, like this wouldn't really work. And then how they fill in the gaps with frog DNA, like some.
Well, that was kind of part of the plot, though, wasn't it? And that's how the dinosaurs started procreating.
Yes, they switched gender. So they did motivate that a bit. Yeah, I've just always heard people say, "Oh, wouldn't dinosaurs start croaking or something if they're using some frog DNA here?" but yeah. So like most of the stuff, like the weakness of it is just the story, like how they get these dinosaurs back to life. And when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, this makes total sense. Yes." Now as your order, it's like, yeah, okay, you're kind of stretching the believability. That have to do
with the fact that we know more about the science behind it now, because DNA in '93 was a very new thing. I don't even think it was admissible in court at that point. You know?
Yeah.
So it was so new that everyone was like, sure, yeah, and it was based off the book. And the book was
Yeah, the book was the same way.
I think in the 80s or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's based off this idea that was so brand new. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh wow, that's amazing. This is totally feasible.
Mm-hmm.
But now 25 years later, I mean, if that's the only plot hole is the fact that the science has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like
Yeah.
pretty fantastic story there.
Yeah. But honestly, like that's the only thing I really have. I wouldn't even say bothers me a whole lot. I mean, it is what it is. I don't really have a big problem with it. But if there was like a weakness of it, then it'd probably be that for me. Did you have anything beyond that?
I felt like that's why I put it in the notes was because I'm like, I don't see a plot hole in this film.
Yeah.
And usually there's like something in every film. You know, I mean, there's something slightly of like, oh, they should have done this better. Or I'm not one of those people who ascribes to the idea of like, well, what they should have done logically, because in like the crazy situations you end up in
Right.
films, you don't think logically.
No.
Someone's chasing you down, you're not going to think, oh, the logical
Should
thing
I
to
do
here
this?
is this is how I should defeat them.
No.
You might forget that you have that gun in your pocket or something, you know, or like that,
Yeah.
whatever it is that.
All in the moment. Like we can sit back and relax 'cause we're in a cozy theater watching this,
Yeah.
but they're in that environment, in that situation, no, you can't always expect them to have the most logical reaction.
Yeah, and that's literally why when you do self-defense training and things like that, they talk about like having to calm yourself down. But that's not what's happening in the movie. They're not calming themselves down.
Yeah.
So
And not to mention, I mean, this is dinosaurs. I mean,
Right?
things that you've never experienced any time
no
in your
book
life.
for
There's
it.
no, this is
there was
all
no
new
book
thing.
on like how to deal
new
with an
book.
elephant charging you, or what to do if an alligator's charging you. There's no like what to do if a T-Rex is coming after you. There might be a video about it now
Yeah.
because of Jurassic Park existing, but there was
No,
nothing back in
you had no
about it.
idea what to expect. Just like Grant says in the movie, we have no idea what to expect from this. But yeah, even from the characters, like I loved how they developed Grant. He was like he hated kids in the beginning, and basically he becomes a father at the end because he guided Lex and Tim throughout the park. And Malcolm, I think, gets a little bit of respect because his whole chaos theory came true in the end. In the beginning, they were all kind
like
of
the psycho crazy guy.
yeah. Everyone thinks he's crazy and
"What?"
don't listen to this guy. And what he says comes true by the film's end. So
I think that's why I really liked Lost World because you got to see more of him
Yeah.
in it. I know that Lost World gets a lot of hate, and the other sequels, the third one gets even more hate. But I feel like the only thing I had a problem with in Lost World was the major thing.
the rampage scene in San Diego. No.
Oh my gosh, that was a little crazy. The raptor and the gymnastics.
Oh yes,
That
there
was
she.
like just the kind of like, what is this? It's not like she's some type of martial artist. She's a gymnast and she's using that to defeat a raptor. Nah,
Yeah,
it's a bit out
that's
there.
where it goes kind of off the wall for me too. That was I kind of try to skip that part if I can, anytime. But
and it does run a little long with the San Diego scene and everything because that has this whole aspect of like, how because they only had a T-Rex on board. How is it that there's a hand, just a hand hanging inside this tiny little room?
Yeah.
How did the T-Rex get that guy?
he was in this crate. The whole time. How does that work?
It just didn't make sense.
Some
That whole
things-
scene was just seemed like they were trying to make the movie longer for some reason or something. It's a little bizarre.
Yeah,
I think it would have been better if they had just ended with the fact of like, hey, I replaced the guy's bullets with the batteries, and then go with, oh no, they've captured these things anyways. They're bringing them back to the real world. Poof, end movie.
yeah.
Then the third one could have been like dinosaurs on land. That would have been, I think, a better route to go with that. But I still think Lost World was pretty good.
Yeah, and the effects, like not to mention the effects, are still
solid.
still amazing. One more thing I want to say about Jurassic Park is its themes, like of the arrogance of humanity and how our seemingly like inevitable fate of self-destruction. I love those kind of themes. Like I mean, those were kind of present in Terminator before, like how humanity creates these things many times without thinking. Think it's going to better ourselves in some way, and then it comes back to bite us. And it also goes back to Malcolm's line: the scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Yeah.
And so a lot of strong and resonant themes in Jurassic Park as well.
All right.
So yeah,
Thank you for joining us for this podcast.
yeah,
Next month, we're going to be discussing Aliens as our
Yes.
classic movie. We'll decide what the modern movie is later on.
yeah.
and see what else we have for the TV aspect. If you have any suggestions, let us know. And thank you for listening. This has been Buddy Movies.
Buddy Movies.